Good evening, everyone from Nigeria. I keep saying from Nigeria because I know we have other people on the call. So good evening, everyone. And good evening, Mr. Boyede, my mentor for excellence. This one is my mentor. Anywhere I go, I talk about it. Thank you so much for being a beacon, actually, a beacon of hope, light, at these times that we're in, and you've been a voice. And indeed, I appreciate that. I sincerely do. And thank you for this program that you've put up, that you set up, Talking Trade. It's a good platform. This is the second one in the series. And thank you, Lady K. Yes, thank you, Lady K. I looked into the room. I saw Mr. Sidi Aliu. I was like, hey, Mr. Sidi is here. What do I want to come and talk about? But I'm very excited about that because it also means that we're going to have some very rich conversations, because we actually have those also coming to this room this evening with a world of experience in export. I saw Mrs. Lani Wako as well. She's an astute exporter. I saw her earlier in the room if she's not out yet. And I saw a couple of familiar faces. So that's great. Today I'll be teaching mostly on the principles because I'm here to share tips. But of course, in sharing the tips, I usually go around it with the principles, because if you understand the principles, then it becomes easy to do anything. Because it's possible if you say, oh, do it this way, do it a certain way, then when that particular method ceases to exist, sometimes you see people getting stuck and not being creative anymore. But if you understand the principles and how to go about certain things, it's just for you to apply that knowledge and that understanding in any situation you found yourself. And that's why I usually would always go with principles. Just understand what can happen in this situation and what to do or who to talk to and all of that. So today there'll be tips, but they'll be really very good tips that you can make use of anywhere you find yourself, whether you are from home or you're abroad, you're in Canada, you're in UK, you're in Nigeria. I'm going to be talking about this. Okay, so I remember I was at an event some time ago, and there I was talking about export anyway. I was talking about exports, and the person said, now we don't have food security in Nigeria. How come you want us to be exporting when we don't have food? So someone said that day, and I just smiled. I said, well, trade is necessary. Trade is necessary. It is just important that we trade, regardless of whoever looks at it. For the fact that we export to other countries, we also import as well. We also import from other countries, and that's just what it is. And of course, trade also helps our governments. Governments foster economic trade, they foster relationships. Government relate with each other through trade. So trade is just really powerful. And when we're talking about trade, we're talking about both import and export, definitely. Because if I'm exporting to your country, then you're importing from me. So there has to be a balance right there, really. And so this is very key. Either if I'm sending a product to Canada, the person from Canada is actually importing from me while I'm exporting to him. So both ways, there are two sides of that activity: import and export. And of course, each time we trade is for the benefit of both parties. If two governments are trading, two countries are trading, is for their benefit. And really, if you let's look at Nigeria as an example. It's not everything we consume that we produce. We need to import some things into Nigeria. Some of the things we import become inputs to some of the manufactured products that we have here. The same way, there's some things you find in Nigeria or parts of Africa that you cannot find in the UK or in the EU, and we need to move those things there. So it's important to understand some things, and I think I would set that quickly. Why international trade and local trade is different from each other. It's definitely different because you're crossing borders. It's cross-border trade, and in that case the rules change completely. The rules just change, because if you're in your local market, you'll be looking at your local rules and your regulations, but by the time you begin to go to some other place, sorry, just a minute. Okay. Sorry for that, please. And by the time you begin to you cross somebody else's borders to go into their own territory, you realize that some things are not the same. The rules change. A lot of things just begin to change at that. And again, you are moving a product from one territory to the other. You're crossing seas, you're crossing the airwaves. So there's several things would come into play here. It's not just that you go to the market and buy what you want to buy and get home. So really, why trade is very technical. Those are some of the reasons, because there's so many intermediaries in there that you need to take care of. And if you don't take care of those intermediaries, it will not all go well at all. I know some of us have exported before, imported, and we have had our fingers burnt. I know this. At least I've supervised one or two of these exercises, so I know what I'm talking about. And it's because maybe we did not take care of one or two things, of course. So that becomes really important for us to look at it. And let me also mention here that in this time that we're in, at this time that we're in, e-commerce has taken center stage. And there's a lot of technology, infusion, mobile technology, e-commerce. So it's also becoming easier to even move products or to do your transactions online. And then all you need to do is after doing your transaction online, the rest of it is how you're going to move the physical goods from where they are to where they should go to, the destination market. So there's a whole lot about technology also that is coming into this space, which is quite interesting. And I'm going to be talking about services in a bit. So this is really important to us. Now technology has enabled us to do business on a global scale. And, it has also become a bit more easier to find buyers, for example, online. There's some tools, for example, the ITC has a tool, the trade map. You could go online and generally just study trends about what countries are importing what, who is exporting what. And through those trends, you can analyze your data, and somehow it can point you to the way of where you can get to find a buyer really for your product. So all those are also coming up, pretty strong. Right, so what can be traded? What can be traded? Before I move on, Madam Auntie K, please, how many minutes do I have? I really need to just confirm that. Let me just check that. How many minutes do I have?
Actually, you have 20 minutes, and you have another 20-30 minutes for question and answers. You'll meet, ma'am. I'll meet yourself.
Okay. All right. So what can be traded is a good question. What can be traded? You can trade both products and services. Most of us are used to physical goods. We move goods from Apapa to London. We move from Delta to some other part of the world. So we're pretty used to products, even though many SMEs are coming into this space. They find it very difficult to move products, really, because of some of the bottlenecks that we've encountered in our ports, even in documentation. There's still so much. And let me also just say this, that export is not that simple. I keep saying this, export is not that simple. If it is that simple, and everybody will be exporting. It's very technical, very, very technical. And you need to pay attention to every part of the chain, the value chain of export. There's nothing you can ignore in this matter. If you do, you might end up paying for it dearly. So it's just a quick warning that especially for goods has to come in a particular form, with a particular quality, particular label, documentation must be put in place in a certain way and all that. We cannot just ignore all of that. So it's pretty technical, and that's important for us to first understand the principles behind some of these things. Then secondly, you can export services. Services will look like things that are probably intangible, but really services have no boundaries. If you ask me, we are moving goods from Lagos, from the port to the ship, and off we go. But services, you could just sit down in front of your laptop and you're selling a service to someone abroad, and they're paying you. They're paying you for your services. Mr. Boyede talked about, of course, services is responsible for up to 70% of world trade, and that's so true. Even in our country, Nigeria, almost 60-something% of that GDP is from trade, from services. And so looking away from tangible products exporting, we're also looking at services. And I think I put something here, the next slide. Let's see whether, okay. So I've put a slide here. I might be able to share this slide with everybody, so I'll send that so that we can have it. But here we have services, trade in services, and the World Trade Organization General Agreement on Trade in Services stipulates 4 modes of services supply. I think it's also important to quickly note that so that we can also begin to think about it. I think for me now, also services export is really a big deal. It's really a big deal. So if you look at mode 1, they have modes 1 to 4, and mode 1 is cross-border trade, okay, where from one territory of one member into territory of another member, that's another country. For example, let me give you, so legal services, I have a good example on that. So I have a friend here that is providing legal services for clients in America. So she organizes lawyers here, they create briefs and all of that. And somehow those briefs are used abroad. Those briefs are used abroad. So it crosses the border to where it's being used and is paid for there. Then we talk about consumption abroad, where this service is consumed in the territory. You know, where this service is produced, that's where it is consumed, e.g. tourism. So you go to a country, you go through their tourism, you go and visit. Like in America, everything is packaged as tourism, everything, including football. You pay and all of that. So I'm in America, this is where I'm consuming that service, okay? And so we say that tourism is a very beautiful thing, really, for Nigeria. If we can, I'm from Nigeria, so I'm speaking as a Nigerian. If our tourism sector works very well, then that could bring us a lot of foreign exchange, indeed, because foreigners will come here, they take, they enjoy our tourism sector and they pay for it, and we make money from those things. Then mode 3 is commercial presence, where a service supplier actually goes to that territory and sets up his commercial presence, and like our banks are doing that. And then number 4, presence of natural person, where someone, a member from here goes to naturally, physically carries himself. So his presence is the presence of a natural member in one territory in another. So we can talk about consultants. So I could be called upon to come and do some job in America or somewhere. I've exported my service from here. So I can begin to think of what we can do in this wise as well. Some of us, we work here in Nigeria, and the people that are consuming our services are abroad. So that's a beautiful thing. It's also export of services. You are being paid. I've benefited some of those things, especially some of the services I have provided. There was a time I did something with the British Standard Institute, and I was here, and I was paid for my services anyway, and I was paid in pounds. I wasn't paid in naira. So you can take those services and move them across borders. The person enjoying it is across, but I am here offering that service. So today I'm going to talk a bit on these outlines. I'm not going to go into this because that's where the next slides will come from. But my outline, we talk about research, I'll talk about market entry, legal and regulatory requirement, logistics. Let me not bore you with that. So let me move straight to this slide. Now, for any one of us in here that really want to you want to participate in trade, you need to be someone that you must be able to do research. You must do research. You must research information. You must research what is happening in this sector right now. What is the trend? You need to. You just need to. You don't have a choice. It's not a choice you have. If you really want to be in this sector, you must do your research. You must conduct research from time to time. You must be inquisitive about information. You must know what's the trend, what's going on. And of course, somebody, when we're doing introduction, said they're looking at getting customers, buyers for their product. So of course, if you want to get that, it involves research. Whether it's local research, whether it's international research, it requires getting out of your comfort zone, going out and having conversations, building networks is important, asking questions. There's no two way about that. You may attend trade fairs. Some shows are happening. I know people that, not that they have products yet, but they just make sure that they save enough to travel to attend trade fairs and trade shows, because from there they can begin to make contacts. So you need to do that. You need to find your contact, maybe foreign contacts. And of course, people you meet, maybe your potential customers, you continue those conversations with them long after you have even said your goodbyes. You begin to pitch to them as well. You can talk to them about the product you have. They can even end up becoming your contacts in those places, helping you to look for those opportunities. So it's really important that you start making, having your own research, begin to make your research, find information. Information is key, is absolutely key. Okay, you want to also know, okay, this product I have, what countries can I trade with? Or even you may even want to find countries that are seeking certain products, and that may be a place of your own competitive advantage, okay? And you can make those connections. It's very important. I remember the training we had in March, and Max does a lot with the EU market. And he actually pointed something specific to some of the SMEs in the room, that he noticed that most people are going to certain countries that perhaps they have been saturated already. And he was talking about other countries that, have you considered going to the Balkans, any of those countries in the Balkans? Have you found out what exactly they might need? What kind of food do they eat in those kind of places? What kind of raw materials are they looking for? That for us was an eye-opener anyway. And of course, you also, on your research, you want to find out what are the regulatory requirements in those countries you want to go to. Like I said earlier, it's really about cross-border trade. So whatever obtains here may not obtain there. And you have your local laws, you have your local requirements, even for products that are going out. At the same time, you also want to know for those products coming into those countries, what are the local laws? What are the regulatory requirements? So it's critical that you also find out these things, okay? And one big elephant in this room is the export documentation and procedures. You must understand. One thing I know is this: you don't have to understand everything. I'm sitting here, okay, so Mr. Boyede introduced me, the expert, but the truth is I can only be an expert in one or two things. When it comes to export, there's so many angles to it, so many angles to export that you need to work with experts. You need to work with the right kind of people. So for example, you want to freight your products, you need to get a freight forwarder. You need to get someone that has experience in that field. Sometimes while we're trying to cut corners or we're trying to pay cheap, you end up, commissioning someone that doesn't really know much about what you want to do or doesn't really understand documentation, is not well experienced, and those kind of people can screw you up seriously. So also you need to do your research. Who should I be talking to in this regard for my documentation? What do I even need? Understanding it first for yourself, and also getting someone that can really help you to put it all together. It's very important. And to understand the procedures. What are the procedures that this product needs to undergo from my warehouse or even from my farm to where it's going to in the market? You want to understand all of that. You want to understand logistics. Of course, your logistics documentation will always come with the logistics, definitely. But you want to know, how do I move this product? Do I ship it? Do I fly it? You just want to know which one works for me. You know that sometimes, of course, if you put something on the ship, a ship can stay forever on the ice seas before it gets to you. I'm saying this because I know if you put a highly perishable product on the ship, well, rather than you to freight it through the airplane, you might have yourself to blame for things like that. So you also want to understand, to take your decisions, what kind of logistics approaches should I take? What options are there for me? What are the payment methods? Because that's very key. You're shipping to someone abroad, you're sending the product abroad. How will I get my payments? It's very important. You need to find out what that is. It's key that you do that. Okay. And then you want to understand the risks. So if this should happen, how do I mitigate this risk? How do I edge this risk? You need to think about all of that. Okay. Don't forget, I kept saying that I'm going to teach you the principles because these are tips. But one thing is, if you understand it, that's one. Two, I think when we did the export mentorship program, one of the things we had mentioned to the mentees is that when you are ready, the moment you are ready, some of these things you begin to understand even better. So there are times you want to know everything once, but because it could just stay there, but you're wondering, how do I apply this? But really, at the point of when you are really ready to export, you would get exposed to some of these things I'm talking about, okay? But it's important to understand the principles, to understand the know-how, the tips, so that when you're getting there, at least you understand what to look out for. It's important. What do I look out for? Who do I talk to? And again, I will say this, it's also important to belong to a network. So when Mr. Boyede said this will be on WhatsApp, I think that's great, because you also need to belong to a network where you can ask questions. When you are ready, you need to have some experts around you. When it's time, you should ask someone, say, hey guy, this is what I have, and what do I do next? What kind of certification? These are critical things, okay? So I want to go to market entry strategies, and this is important because somehow you must plan your strategies of entering a particular market. It's very important. And how do you decide what market you want to go to? I've mentioned it somewhere at the back there. Number one, you want to know what markets, who are the people looking for the kind of products you have, or what are the products that some countries may be looking for that you might even have, really, and you have an edge in that regard. So you want to identify a market for your product or service. You want to find a buyer or a customer. And I've mentioned to you also how you can find some of those things. Then a question is very key that you need to ask yourself: what does the customer want? I think that's very important. Now I've seen, it's not today, it's not yesterday, quite a number of people ask me this question: I want to export. That question is regular. And I ask, what do you want to export? And the question is, what do you want to export? And I cannot find any answers to these questions. Someone just says, I just want to export. I just want to export. How? And then you see someone telling me, okay, I want to send a logo. Where do you want to send
me what to export?
You know that they just want you to tell them, like, write a list, be exporting this. It doesn't work like that. I'm like, you don't just say I have a product, you want to push it on someone that doesn't want it. No. That handshake must happen. That handshake, somebody must say, I want this. In what quantity are you going to supply to me? And what format do I want it? It's very important. So export is not complete until you have a buyer. There must be a demand. In fact, in this market, the buyer is king at the end of the day because it dictates the terms of that particular contract with you. And if you can meet it, beautiful. And indeed, also, I would say, you don't promise what you cannot deliver. No, you don't. If you promise what you cannot deliver, it becomes a big mess. Anytime we fail, okay, anytime you fail, as a Nigerian, for example, anytime you fail with a buyer abroad, wherever in the world they are, anytime we fail to keep our promise, we mess up a particular export consignment or something, I tell you, it's the whole of Nigeria that will suffer that. Huh? It's just you that this conversation was had with you only. But the fact that you messed the whole thing up, either you disappointed this person or you promised what you cannot do, or you sent something that was not, that was not quality, it is Nigeria that is suffering each time. It is your country that will suffer each time this happens. And that's why it's something we keep saying. Don't enter a contract that you cannot service. Don't do so. Don't do so. Don't enter a contract you cannot service, please. And don't promise what you cannot do. I know that export might seem attractive to some of us. I want to export, but there's so much about this that we cannot afford to do whatever we like with it. No. So what does the customer want? A wholesaler, a retailer, a manufacturer, whoever it is that you're selling to, the person that is buying from you. You need to understand what they want. And what I'm saying you should understand what the customer wants is this. So first, assuming you are selling to a supermarket, I'm just using this as an example, okay? And that supermarket just wants fresh apples. It's just fresh apples they want. Then you understand that you need to deliver fresh apples from your country to that destination. So it has to come fresh. There should be no scars on that apple. There should be nothing like that. But if the person wants apples for concentrates, then you don't have to be very particular about grooming apples that are looking so fine and so beautiful and so pretty. Because really, at the end of the day, it's not that aesthetics that this person really needs, okay? It needs to make concentrates, and so it just needs its raw material, which are your apples. So you need to understand the different dynamics as well in this market, okay? And once you understand that, so there's one of my colleagues that he exports shea butter. So two things, and when we got talking, he said, his own is not grade A because there's shea butter for cosmetics and all of that. There's shea butter for food. So the quality of the shea may differ in both cases. So if you don't understand what the person needs it for, you might just be slaving yourself overspending to be processing. Whereas really the person doesn't need it in that grade. Okay. And when we're also talking about grades are relative. It depends on what the person that is buying from you needs. The buyer can define the grade that he wants. And of course, you need to also ensure that you agree on it. So that it's not just hearsay. You need to agree. Most of these things even goes into your export contract. And it's once you sign, this is what I'm sending to this person. This is what will be checked at the other end. And once it's fulfilled all the requirements, I get my payment. There are different ways of paying anyway. And of course, market entry strategies may also require maybe promoting your product as well in that destination market, which might be that maybe you have someone in there at the other end. I see some of our Nigerians, they send some samples, they tell their friends, can you just sample this for me there? Can you put it in your store somewhere? Let's see how we go. You can do all of that, really. You can position your product. The way you position your products is different from country to country. And don't forget the cultural inclinations as well when it comes to export, okay? There's some things that are forbidden in some countries, but in your country, it is regular. So also check that very well when you're doing your research, okay? Are these things allowable here or not? Even as simple as packaging. Some packaging materials are not allowed in some countries. So really check all of those things, because if you package a particular product and the packaging material is not allowed in that country, that becomes contraband at the end of the day. You also need to understand that it's not all things that you eat here that can pass the borders into some other country. Note that very well, okay? Note that very well. So I know that in some places, Milo will not be taken. In some cases, milk will not go through. So don't just decide that this is what I want to do and I'm going ahead with it. That's why I started with what I call research. And of course, when you're looking at the export market, there are three things that I think you should take note of. Quality is number one. Quality tops it. And quality, like I said, could also be subjective, really. Quality is quality, but grades may differ, okay? So for me, a grade B can be quality under the context of which I want to buy your product. But always, decide with your buyer, make sure you ascertain those parameters for quality. And the fact is this, if I ask you to send me a particular product in a particular format with a particular FFA content, moisture content, and all that, and you breach all of that, then you have not met the quality that I've told you to supply to me. And if by my own standards, I can reject your product. So we need to ensure that we meet these demands by all means. Then, when I talked about logistics earlier, also never forget that logistics, the time that your product stays before it gets to the other side may affect quality. So that could also help you to decide quickly how do I want to transport this so that the quality of this product is not hampered before it reaches where it's going. Because at the end of the day, the buyer may not consider all of that, may not consider the in-betweens. All he has paid for is a certain thing, and what he wants to receive is that thing he has paid for. So all the in-betweens, you need to figure it out. You need to get either a logistics manager or a logistics company that understands the time value of money and their word is their bond. You need to get so much of that running. That these ones, they have a track record in the field, in the sector. What they say is what they do. You just need to do some of these things. You need to follow up certain things so that you're sure that at least at the port of when it's leaving, departure here from Nigeria, the thing has gone, is inspected, it is according to what has been agreed in your contract and all of that. You can't just turn it back and say, okay, I've sent it, let me just go to bed. So it's very important, quality, and a lot of things erode quality, like I just said, time and space and distance and weather and the elements. So you need to also put that in mind. And I'm talking also about quantity. Quantity is important because the person that is buying from you probably, let's just take it that the person buying from you, okay, let me take shea butter. Let me give real examples. I'm talking of shea butter because I do a bit of that. Now, the person wants maybe 20 tons of shea butter because he's a cosmetics formulating company, maybe in Netherlands, for example, and it needs that amount of shea to produce the amount of butter, body butters and all that it produces. So if he tells you, can you give me 10 tons, 20 tons, 30 tons? It depends on the agreement. And you say, yes, I can. And he says, you know what? I want you to give me every quarter because with these 20 tons, I can make this much. Yeah, at least that could suffice for 3 months. Then another 3 months. And you have the agreement. Fine. The guy needs that product in that quantity, in that volume. That's why he has asked. He needs it in that volume because it's an input to a production line. And because he's in business, it's important for him to make sure that he keeps that production line running. So really, in terms of quantity of volume, you need to also keep to that customer's promise, or else it is going to hinder him at his own end. It's going to hinder him in terms of his sales because he doesn't also want his buyers to come to his shop and he's telling them, oh, I'm so sorry, I don't have products right now. So these are some of the things that people are looking for, buyers from different countries. They're looking at quality because quality is everything, if you ask me. Then quantity, consistency as well. Consistency in delivering the quantity that can help this guy to also keep him in business. So we need to think of that. So that means even you in Nigeria here, you have to keep thinking, or wherever country you are from, you have to start thinking of your supply chain. How consistent can I get this? Can I supply this thing to this person? How consistently? How can I aggregate this at my own end at the right quality? And then at the price that we're talking about. So you're dealing in international trade, you're dealing in an international market where really it might not be only you that has the product. So the same guy that is buying share from you here in Nigeria will go to Burkina Faso and buy the same thing, or go to Ghana and buy the same thing. So if you're selling yours at a price that is almost twice the rest of them, then they can decide to move from here, move elsewhere. It's as simple as that. So even the issue of pricing, but the challenge we have with pricing in this part of the world is also because the cost of production is high. So it's also a bit challenging where it becomes difficult for us to become competitive. But also you can solve your competitiveness advantage. You can solve that competitiveness challenge, really. You might want to aggregate, you might want to see how you can drop the cost of production. It depends, but begin to look at it that way. So quality, quantity, and price is very key for you to play well in this market. See, buyers are looking for sellers. They're looking for, they want to buy from people places where they can get quantity, they can get quality, and they can get it at the right price. Those three things is like a tripod. And so some of the things you are looking at also when you're talking to your customers, when you're looking for them, those are some of the questions, some of the discussions you need to start having. So you also know whether it's something you can service or not. It's very important. Then, of course, I've talked about legal and regulatory requirements. Of course, I've talked about that, even your packaging and labeling, very important. Your labeling, your packaging. Some of us also don't understand that some of these things are going to be handled over distances, over different elements, over climatic changes, over the ocean, over the air. Your packaging is very important. Packaging is key. Sometimes you open a container and almost everything inside is all scattered. Some of the packages are torn, things are poured out. No, it's a no. So you have to really think of your packaging and labeling. And when we're talking about this, we're talking about technical and marketing. That labeling, technical requirements, you're putting some of the technical information on that label. Somebody's opening it, you can see the name, you're putting in different languages. Imagine you're sending a product to France and it's not labeled in French. I wonder how can we look at your product and know what is on it? Okay, so we want to do several languages. Some are, of course, international, in line with international codes. French will usually be on some of the packages. They are going to where is that now? Arabian countries, you have to put in Arab. You need to think of that as well. Okay, even if you want to put the botanical name of those products. But you know, even in a regular daily life, you go to the supermarket, what makes you buy some of the products? Some of you, if you care about maybe you are watching your weight. There's some products you buy in the supermarket, you want to check how much gram of this, how much gram of this. It's just the same way. The same way is how when you are sending your products abroad as well, your labels should contain some of those things. Directions for use, disposal, how do you dispose this product? They are standard requirements also for packaging, okay, and labeling. You need to also get that. Because we are not experts in those things as well, you might get someone that is good with packaging and labeling that can also advise you based on the kind of product. Because every product has a kind of package that goes with it, okay? It's not every package you put on every kind of product, no. So you might want to get a packaging expert to help you look at it. This is what I want to export. They can advise you, why is this not suitable? Why is this suitable? That is key for you, okay? And then, of course, if there needs to be any certification, you might begin to start looking at it quickly. If I want to export, I saw, I don't know her name now, she's in the group there. She was talking about her fish, that her fish is ready. So
in MSC.
In MSC. Actually, she even sent a pack to me, very nice fish. Let me confess.
I have it in Canada already.
You see that? So that's an MSC's fish, and I like her package. Anyway, I really liked it and very tasty. But if any of your products you need certification, if you need, some countries will require fair trade, rainforest, all sorts. Oh God, there's some of the. It's just interesting. But if you need to certify any of your products, then you also need to start the process. Certification takes some time. Or it's not, certifications don't happen overnight. Certification takes time too. It might require some audits and all of that. Certification takes time. What about your documentation? What legal and regulatory documentations that will be checked, of course, at the point of entry? And even here, where you're living, where your own country, your destination country, you're talking about quality assurance. Of course, when we're talking about environmental concerns, these are very, very valid issues. Environmental concerns, you're shipping something to another country, your temperature and the temperature there, they're two different things, man. Of course, here we don't experience snow, we don't experience hail a lot of times. Some countries are taking these things to, they're in winter almost all year round. So you also need to put some of these things in consideration. You can now see why I said if you need to research on that country, very key. Because even temperature changes can destroy the texture of a particular product, honestly. So you need to start thinking of that. You're taking something to a particular country, maybe in Africa, where the weather is, the heat there is almost twice what you have in your own country. You just need to figure some of these things out, please. You need to research, you need to ask questions, you need to perhaps somebody has just exported to some country where you were interested in, ask them questions. It's very key that we do that. And I'm sure within this sector where we are, this particular group we're putting up right now, I'm sure there'll be people here that can just raise a question. Oh, I have a buyer somewhere, or I have an eye for this particular place. Can somebody tell me what's trending there at the moment? It's very important you ask those questions, okay? And then, of course, the contract. That contract is key. If you decide to export to a particular place, or you already have someone that you're going to buy from, then there must be a contract or a purchase order. That is absolutely necessary. I put dispute resolution here because yes, there are times that things may go wrong. Yes. How do you resolve your disputes? How do you resolve those issues when they come up? Look at it as a regular contract here as well. Even in your local community where you have contracts with people, there are times it doesn't just go the way you plan. How do you settle those disputes? It's very important. Or else, if you don't, you might be losing money, you might lose, and the other person just, well, doesn't care about it. So you need to also put all of that in mind. Then of course the payment methods is very key. How will this person pay me? What are the payment methods available? How do I and I think in payment methods there are quite a number of ways you can pay the buyer seller. There are agreements in there, so maybe it's a letter of credit in case where the buyer cannot pay you, you know that the bank is going to pay you. So you have to start thinking of those things. Is there a payment upfront? Well, maybe a relationship is built with that buyer and the person can pay you upfront before you even send the goods. So you have to also have those conversations, okay? It's important to do so. The logistics, I said here that things can get really messed up if you don't pay attention to logistics, okay? It's really key. So we've met a couple of logistic companies. Some have come highly recommended. I think one of them even came for the NPNEN conference that we had in March. And it's important to also create an ecosystem like that, even here, where we also have that ecosystem has logistics providers, you know, and they're tested and trusted. We can hold them accountable because also a lot of things happen in this space. Even a logistics provider might well come out to you as someone okay and, you know, trustworthy, but somewhere along the way something just goes wrong and it just runs you up a wall. So I feel that even in this group, in this particular group that we're going to be on WhatsApp, we need to bring in people like this into this platform so that we can have all the solutions in one place. It almost becomes like a one-stop shop in my view. So yeah, while the expert is saying, okay, yeah, we need to think about your logistics. We're bringing in logistics company. What are your terms? What, you know, everything. We need to get that on point. It's very important. I can say this over and over again, that logistics has been a major issue. Sometimes you even put your products on the ship and then the ship never gets to where it's going on time. It's berthing in different ports for some reason. You have no idea. You're wondering what's going on with my product. My, oh my. It's a tough one. It's a tough one. But if you get a good logistics company that their word is their bond, you might just be able to get around some of these things. Then I put in intellectual property. And the reason why I put intellectual property is very key because when you want to engage in international trade, then IP would have to come in. Now you want to put a project, you want to send your product to a particular country, you must also find out whether that kind of product exists there, especially maybe the name of the product, for example. So I want to export, I want to start selling, let me see what product in the UK. I want to start selling Titi pomade. I'm using my name now, Titi pomade. Maybe there's a Titi pomade in the UK, I don't know. So it's important to find out because IP, intellectual property rights, are territorial. So whatever you registered here is for Nigeria as a territory, okay? Once you cross the border, you need to also understand how intellectual property rights obtain, or else you might be seen as someone that is infringing on somebody else's either trademark or copyright. So very important, think about it. Very important. I think this is one thing we really don't think about much. But intellectual property is very important.
Thank you. Yes, I know we leave you to keep talking. We'll be here till tomorrow. We have just about 5 more minutes. Is that okay? Good.
All right, okay. Great. And then financing. Of course, because if you really want to engage in international trade the way it should be, you want to put up a cargo and all of that. You don't want to be a handbag exporter, because handbag exporter, you're not an exporter. You just put your handbag, you travel with it on your plane, off you go. But really, you want to be an exporter that is doing legal export, and you can also benefit from government interventions like the export grants and all that is given to exporters that are repatriating some of their proceeds to the country for development and all of that. Yeah, so it's time. Sometimes you might need some really serious financing really to finance a particular export order. So here you might want to think about it. Do I really have finance to run this kind of business? It's like also planning a business really. And you're saying, do I have the capital to even do this? So think about it. Financing is also key. You are interested in exporting, yeah, but do you have the kind of finance? Do you have the capital base? If you don't, how can you raise it? Could it be equity? Could it be whatever way? Could it be even partnerships? Think about it too. Think about it too. Then you're thinking of all the risks. I've talked about risk earlier. So there are loads of risk: payment risk, political risk, commercial risk, currency risk. There can be fluctuation. All these risks exist. If you don't have a heart, you might just die when you get disappointed. Trust me. I'm sure Mr. Boyede can testify to that. If you don't have a strong heart for international trade, think about it. Try and lower your risk at the beginning, or else you just faint. You say, hey, let's import and export, not send it to an early grave. The risk is high, okay? It's high, but the more you master it, the better you get at it, okay? But these risks exist. They are real. They are valid. They happen every day. So also note that. But once you know the risk, you know how to also mitigate or hedge them before you even set out, okay? Some of these things also, insurance can take care of it. Some of us don't insure some of the things we do. So insurance is a great way to get around some of this risk, really. Your company, what about the company that wants to export? I wrote some things here. You must be legally registered, definitely, and licensed. So in Nigeria, for example, you get a certificate from Nigeria Export Promotion Council. They have your data. So somebody from the UK, anywhere in the world, may want to check on their website to see whether you're on that list of registered exporters. It's very important because it's called due diligence. Okay? Are you tax compliant? Do you have good credit history? Very important. But some of you that don't know, the credit bureaus, they have your credit records. So don't think that we are not capturing how you are hoeing and borrowing all over the place. Good credit history. If it's not good, somebody will not want to work with you. Are you traceable? Your office that you're setting up, are you able to process international business cases? Very important. It's not a local business, international. Are you able to manage complaints? Should any of that arise? Do you have a contemporary website in place? Do you have information on your website in various languages? So anybody from anywhere can get to your site and see and can read what you have on offer. That's very important. There's very those that, of course, this is your window to the world. Very important. All your advertising materials, do they meet even in various languages? And and visuals, do they meet international trade? Then, of course, who am I doing business with? I have to put this. It's important. Know that person. Know that person, because there's also fraud, whether we like it or not. People commit fraud. They see how desperate you are, and they want to do business with you, and somehow you are defrauded. So know your customer. Just as the customer wants to know you, you also need to know your customer. Do your background check on these people. What's their payment records like? Are they traceable? You want to know these things. You want to know this person. You just want to be sure that this company is legit. You want to know whether this person is legit. Who are you doing business with? Absolutely necessary. And I think the last slide here is this. I said, know your Incoterms. There are terms of sale. There are set of 11 internationally recognized rules which define responsibility of sellers and buyers. And it specifies who is responsible for paying, for managing shipment, insurance, documentation, customs. So don't let somebody cheat you out and put some tax on your head that is not really meant for you. You're not meant to pay for certain things, and because of your ignorance, somebody will cheat you out of it. So know your Incoterms. And there's a link here. You can actually read about Incoterms. Incoterms 2020 was reviewed in 2020. It's critical that you know the Incoterms, what they mean, and how does that apply to you in a trade relationship with someone when you enter a contract. What covers you? What covers that person? What are the roles of two of you? It's very key. Ignorance will not be an excuse. Okay? My final notes. Find the right advisor. Find the right advisor. Well, I do business advisory. I'm sure Mr. Boyede does a bit of that and all that. The reason why you need a business advisor is that you're not an expert in all of these things. You need, even as I am right now, I have advisors. I don't call myself an expert. I keep saying it. I still told Dr. Alabasi, I said, Doctor, I'm not an expert. He said, so who is an expert? I don't know. But the fact is, I still need to contact like Lauren Wako. I still have to talk to Mr. Boyede. I still have to talk to Bami. I still have to, because these are not things I do every day. So I won't say I've mastered it. And when I know who to talk to part-time. So find the right advisor. It's very key. Don't risk everything by trying to cut corners. Don't cut corners. Please don't. It's very key. Be straightforward. And also make sure you dot your I's and cross your T's. And then stay up to date, okay? Stay up to date what's going on in the sector. The requirements of documentary business are complex, and the risk of making errors when producing documentation is significant. See, documentation alone can put you in such trouble that your entire container can even be destroyed. Documentation, what is entered from your country like Nigeria, the documentation, and when it gets to maybe Canada, there are discrepancies along the way on the different ports that your ship is berthing. Things that people begin to wonder what you say is here is not what is on your paper and all of that. If you're not careful, you just end up being in real big trouble. So please, I think what I'll say is find the right advisor. Okay, for almost everything I've discussed this morning or this evening, find the right advisor. It's very key. Be in the right, in the right network. And I believe you are even right now in the right network. If you really want to go headlong into export business, find time to develop an export plan. Really, I think you should do that. The export plan helps you to think through all the parts of this export business. It really helps you. And I'm sure you'll be better for it. So let me stop here.